is heading back again. Rams win it, and on to Super Bowl 53 they go.
Is this finally the year for Ty Law in the Hall of Fame? My name is Mike Petraglia, joined here in downtown Atlanta at Super Bowl 53 by Alex Barth and Evan Lazar. All right, you are a big proponent of Ty Law.
Yes, sir.
I'm teeing you up, drive it 325 yards down the middle of the fairway, Alex Barth.
I mean, the numbers just blow my mind. You look at this guy, a number of Pro Bowls, multiple-time Super Bowl champion, led the NFL in interceptions numerous times, was All-Pro numerous times. And he intercepted Peyton Manning more than anybody else. That's a consensus top three quarterback.
3 times in one playoff game.
3 times in one playoff game. He was a big game player. And yes, his career was hampered by injuries. But when you look at him compared to a guy like Champ Bailey, who's supposedly a sure thing, the numbers are very similar. And maybe Bailey, sure, his career was longer, but you want to talk about peak, apex, it's Ty Law, and it's no doubt. A guy like Rodney Harrison, who got in last year on the first ballot, Ty Law ate Rodney Harrison's lunch for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single time they played. I don't understand how this guy isn't in. I think it's a similar theme we see with a lot of guys from the early Patriots dynasty. We'll touch on Seymour in a little bit, Willie McGinnis. I think the coach, the team around them sort of hurts their case, but Ty Law, to me, no-brainer, should absolutely be in. I believe he's the only eligible player with 50 interceptions that's not in. That may have changed in the that came out during the season, lest anybody eclipse that. He is. No-brainer, Ty Law should be in.
All right, Evan, look, he had an interception in Super Bowl 36 that was key against Kurt Warner.
Yep. Hand up down the sideline.
Right, up and down, hand up down the sideline. And this is his 3rd time as a finalist, 4th time overall.
Yeah.
I agree with Alex. I think it's a no-brainer.
So a friend of the program, Matt Chatham, told a great story about Ty Law. And this kind of just sums up Ty Law to me in a nutshell. The Patriots are about to play the Buffalo Bills. This is back when Eric Mould was the top receiver for the Bills. Ty Law, Belichick goes through a meeting room around Friday or Saturday, and he quizzes each defensive player. And he says, who do you have? Who do you have? What's your responsibility? Ty Law stood up right away, said, I'm Ty Law, I have Eric Mould, and I'm going to shut his ass down. Just like that, and then he walked out of the room.
That is LT stuff.
That is the type of confidence that he had, and he just went out there. And I think the one thing that they should do, Tom Brady wrote a letter, I believe, on behalf of Ty Law. Why don't you go talk to Marvin Harrison? Why don't you go talk to Eric Mould? Why don't you go talk to Isaac Bruce in Super Bowl 36? Peyton Manning. Go talk to the guys that played against him and had to deal with him and see how good he was, and I guarantee you all of them will vouch for him.
This Patriots Super Bowl report from downtown Atlanta brought to you by the great folks at betonline.ag. Get in on the game, the big game on Super Sunday, by going to clnsmedia.com/win and using the promo code CLNS50 for a 50% buy-in bonus. All right. Back to the Patriots and the Hall of Fame. We talked about Ty Law. Let's talk about Richard Seymour. I think he's deserving. You know, he's an interesting case. Evan, what do you think about Richard Seymour and his case to go into the Hall of Fame?
I think this is what, speaking to Alex's point here, at some point it's kind of hard to pick and choose which players from that defense deserve in, because as an 11, 12, 13-man unit, depending on how, the amount of guys that they used in one game, and Belichick, they were just such a good unit together that I think a lot of the individuals get lost in that kind of pieces to the puzzle type equation. And Richard Seymour is one of those guys that doesn't have the sack numbers that maybe you need to get into the Hall of Fame. He doesn't have the splash plays, but everything ran through Richard Seymour in the front seven, especially on the Patriots defensive line. The #1 blue chip guy that every offensive coordinator was scheming against was Seymour. He got a ton of double teams. He freed up a lot of stuff for Mike Vrabel and Willie McGinnis rushing on the edge, and he was an absolute menace against the run. He was a two-way dynamo player. He could rush the passer. He can stop the run. He did it all for the Patriots, and he got all the attention.
And he is a player, as strange as this sounds, Alex, who I don't think was fully appreciated until he left.
And part of that is the style in which he played really wasn't something that existed at that time. You looked at nose tackles, right? It was Warren Sapp, guys who were 315, 320 pounds or bigger. Kyle Hovind in Minnesota, guys that just essentially took up space. You didn't rush the passer. You didn't collapse the pocket from the interior. But if there is no Richard Seymour, historians of the game will tell you, if there's no Richard Seymour, there is no Aaron Donald, right? That type of player, Seymour was somewhat of a trailblazer for, and it goes a little before Seymour with guys like John Randall, but he was a big part of it. And that's sort of where that happens. Seymour wasn't appreciating his time because I think people just didn't know what they were looking at. You put him in today's game, and again, I think he rivals a guy like Aaron Donald.
That versatility that Seymour had, where he could play really from over the guard to maybe shaded a little bit inside the guard to all the way out in a wide 9 and rush the passer from outside on the edge over the tackle. That kind of versatility is what Bill Belichick loves and has always been looking for. If it's good enough for Bill Belichick, it's probably good enough for the Hall of Fame.
And let's not forget, it wasn't just in New England. He went to Oakland and played on some bad teams, so he sort of got lost in the fray. He put together some good years in Oakland, too.
There are 2 slam dunks. Tony Gonzalez and Ed Reed, they're going in. I don't think anybody is questioning that. We'll have complete coverage of the Hall of Fame ceremonies as well as Super Bowl 53 on CLNSmedia.com. Check out our YouTube page, of course. Feel free to leave a comment or two and go to Twitter at Patriots CLNS. From downtown Atlanta, for Alex Barth and Evan Lazar, Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.